Hi everyone, hi VFX community. I am joined by the awesome David Straiton. Did I pronounce
Hello,
that
everybody. Yes, you pronounced it correctly.
right? I really
Most
should
people
have judged
don't
that.
say it correctly.
Okay, great. Bonus points. So we're in the beautiful Cannes, and we bumped into each other yesterday, and you were talking about how much you loved VFX, and I just jumped on the opportunity to say, can I interview you? So here we are. So I appreciate your time. Um, so you've worked on so many TV series over the years, different genres. Can you tell us a bit about how you've used VFX in the past, please?
Okay, so VFX. The good thing about being an older director is I think I've had an opportunity to see the evolution of VFX from when they were very restricted and we had very limited capability. They were very expensive. So, for example, camera movement was very restricted. We had to really be really careful how many VFX we used in a shot. So we had to be really cognizant of how we planned and how we prepped our shooting.
Mm,
So that was when, if you move the camera, boy, that was going to cost many more thousands of dollars. So we had to be really careful.
yeah.
And now, you've got so much more opportunity. There's so much more flexibility. Also, having the VFX supervisors on set really allows you to work with the kind of VFX you can do,
Yeah.
and also like what you can really maximize and where you really want to sort of save, because
Mm,
everything still costs money.
exactly. Money is such a huge factor in filmmaking. And there's a lot going on in our industry right across the board. Arguably, probably the most challenges that we have right now, but also the most opportunity. A lot of people are saying it can. A lot of democratization, easy for me to say, with AI coming out and everything like that. There's a lot of new tech coming out and software. How do you keep up with that as a filmmaker?
Especially as an older filmmaker, someone who's been doing TV commercials and now entering into the feature film market for almost now 30 years. I think it's really hard. I think you have to be always reading. You have to always be watching, whether it's things on Instagram, like things like eye candy, or reading about VFX, or talking to people like yourself. I think we're always learning. It's never ending, and I think there's just so much evolution. Things are changing. It seems like every 6 months. So I think you just have to always stay on top of it, and also be an avid watcher. I feel like you have to watch everything from music videos, commercials,
Mm,
feature films, and see what people are doing, and also see the changing technique from people now wanting to integrate more sort of real things back into camera, so things are in camera. And so I think it's just always staying educated.
yeah.
I think it's just always got to be on top of it. It's hard. It's a full time
Yes.
job.
Yeah. I think it's hard enough for our own industry to keep up with what's going on. Before I forget, I have a question from Rob Chandler. I was asking our group earlier. He was wanting to know when you come into a TV series, perhaps it's already established, and it has its own style, perhaps directorial style. Are you able to bring in your own personal style? Do you have to keep to the book?
One of the challenges about working as an episodic TV director from show to show is going into someone else's template, working within their style, but also bringing your own technique, some of your own signature uh, ideas to help elevate it. So whether that's bringing in a camera style or bringing in a VFX style, you do have to work within what they've already established. Also, a lot of times, if you're going to do something different, it's really asking for permission,
Mm,
working with the showrunners, working with the studio, and also working with like the crew to try something and say, hey, let's try this, and maybe it'll be successful, because a show is never stagnant. It's always evolving.
yeah.
Sometimes the look is changing from a particular color palette. Maybe they go from more, say, traditional camera work to handheld. So a show is never in stasis. So I always like to try to introduce new ideas.
Yeah.
At the same time, not make it look any different
Mm,
than what's been done before me, because
right.
we're really building on top of other what directors have done.
Of course. Ah, interesting. Thank you. And have you used virtual production yet?
Uh, I have not used virtual production, although we're starting early work on an action picture that will be a combination of volume stages, so Unreal Engine, with real sets, real actors, real action, but relying heavily on Unreal, LED screens, as well as we are considering some AI as well for character extension, character doubling. For example, we have a character that fights 100 guys. Clearly, AI is going to be helpful. Beyond that environment, because it's a shifting landscape, takes place inside a house that's continually changing shape as this guy has to fight his way through it. We're counting on Unreal Engine for those backdrops, as well as AI and real.
Nice.
And bringing those three elements together.
That sounds really cool.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great ride.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like The Raid and Warriors and Enter the Dragon all at the same time. So it's going to be all those elements. It's a true Anabasis story.
Yeah. And when is that out?
So we are starting very, very early work on it. So we won't make that till 2026.
Okay. Nice. And do you have your VFX studios lined up for it yet?
We do not have our VFX studios, so
we'll talk after.
Bring on your bids.
Awesome. And tax incentives, boring question, but very important for our industry. How important is it for you to film somewhere with good tax incentives?
So, building on the movie that we're working on, the samurai action piece, tax incentives are really important for that movie. So going to places that offer rebates, whether that's Canada, whether that's the Canary Islands, whether that's the UK, whether that's Ireland. I guess Ireland is the UK.
Yep.
But those are all things we're looking at, and we're talking to lots of people about that. So I think it's very important.
Yeah.
And the movie we're about to start shooting, Kill or Be Killed, we're shooting that in Canada because of the generous tax incentives.
Yeah.
And the dollar goes further. And we also have the locations and the crew that we like and we know.
Yeah.
So tax incentives are a huge part of it. And also the familiarity with the area, I think, is also super important.
Yeah. Nice. So can you tell us a bit about, you said yourself, you've been working, directing, producing for a long time. Can you tell us about your experience with VFX from the style of old to current day VFX?
I feel like VFX have reached a point now where anything is possible. So whether it's a big Marvel movie where worlds are created, almost the whole shot in its entirety is a digital creation. But I also feel when you compare that, say, to something like Jaws, where there was no VFX, the shark was mechanical. A really dear director friend of mine said, back in the day, the effects were sort of cheesy and obvious, but the audience was invested. And now we have the ability to do anything, and the audience seems less invested. And I think the role and the future, what I'm interested in VFX, is figuring out a way that the VFX re-engage the audience so they don't get numbed by it. I find certain big tentpole movies, you get numbed by the incredible, very detailed effects.
Yes.
But yet I'm less impacted.
Yeah.
Versus the mechanical shark had me scared, crazy.
Yeah.
And so how do we do that again? And that's I don't know how to crack that code, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah. So from a director's perspective, how would you describe the process and the end result from your vision to what you see back from VFX and art departments?
When you prep a show and, the goal is when you do a VFX design, you really want it to, especially when you storyboard it and you present it to the team, it might be months afterwards that VFX is being created. So sometimes we're not included in that process. So it gets removed. And the sad part is sometimes you have a big, exciting idea that's very doable. It's within the budget. Everyone's on board. but then the finished product is maybe slightly less than what you want.
Yeah.
So it's staying involved is part of our challenge as a director. But there's nothing worse than when you come up with a plan and you pitch it to everybody and they're very excited. And I recall one time on a series, hit show, and I pitched this very elaborate shot where we start tight on a person and we pull back and we leave the spaceship and we're out in space and we continue back and it's sort of the impossible dolly shot. And we see the spaceship very, very tiny surrounded by this massive enemy. And it was a pretty cool shot. I thought it was exciting.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, it was just the little spaceship wide without the dynamic camera move.
Yeah.
And I think that was really sad because it was not particularly imaginative from the VFX supervisor. I thought they had kind of hijacked the shot and made it very, very average.
Yeah.
So I think it's, it's like, it's also helping maintain the vision. Obviously, everyone's bringing their ideas to the table, but also the director had an idea, and it's helping them maintain it. So we're really counting on you guys to help the directors maintain the vision, especially when they're removed from the process, by moving on to another project.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess that's quite hard. And VFX teams, they're in their dailies, they're getting constant notes back and forth, and I guess sometimes it can get sort of lost in that, especially if there's multiple people working on it. How can you avoid that, really? Is there a centralized system? Like you say, if you're going on another project, you don't really want to be in on the dailies anymore.
It's a balancing act. I think it's, it's being included. It's like if it's a short clip, having them being sent, even if it's just a QT file where you can look at it and go, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's an involvement thing. It's like I wouldn't change someone else's edit or script without consultation. And I feel like the VFX, it's proprietary to the creative team that's on it, and I feel like if it's changing, let's have that discussion. And I understand time, money, and resources, and to call a director who's maybe halfway around the world and say, "What did you think?"
Yeah.
But if it's like it can be a little more seamless, I think that's an ongoing relationship, and because I feel like I'm protecting the VFX team a lot of times and want them to be successful, and I'm hoping that we also get protected as well, and that the show gets protected.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can say that would be the last thing that any studio would want to do is take away from a director's vision. I had one more question on that, and it's gone. Oh, that's where previs comes in. It's quite nice. You get that idea for the feel of the shot. And a lot of our studios are integrating AI, but they can produce generated. It's not really there yet for anything else, but it's handy for them to have that very quick visual to provide to you.
I mean, I think that's really important because it becomes the sort of visual contract, so to speak, that we all agree on. That is the vision. And then, of course, look, things change all the time. It's like, hey, here's the better idea, or this new technology came into play, or what if we did it this way? I respect that I always call film production a liquid landscape. It's always changing. But I think the previs is a really, really important part of the process because that's, like I say, that's the contract that we're all moving in that direction.
Yeah. Nice. Talking about this last night, you saw a bit of a lot of a downturn the last couple of years, like the rest of the industry, but you've seen a bit of a pickup recently?
Yes. So, to answer your question, there's definitely been a huge downturn in our business. As a television director, I've gone from shooting, many, 10 episodes a year to very few episodes, maybe 2, maybe 1. Past 2 years have been absolutely devastating, particularly in California, United States. I think we've really had a lot of downward pressure, starting with COVID. Then having the actors strike, the writers strike has been, I think that also slowed down our industry. But also, I feel like those were also a smokescreen for the studios to retreat on the amount of production they wanted to make. The streaming wars ended. There was no need to outdo everybody, and I think that that put a lot of pressure on how many shows got greenlit.
Yeah.
And so I think overall with that, and then production being shot in other countries, also put, acquisition shows that are successful, like, Squid Game or Slow Horses, being shot elsewhere put pressure on at least the U.S. domestic market. So
Yeah.
uh,
But
so but lately,
it's looking better.
slow turn, things are starting to change. But the difference is that I see that's huge. Big demand for smaller budgets, a lot of pressure. It's like, can you do this for sometimes we'd shoot a show for $4, $5, $6 million an episode,
Yeah.
and now it's like, can you do this show for $2.5 million
Oh, okay.
or less?
Right.
So I think that's the new paradigm, and I also see, being here at Cannes and also working both in Canada and the United States, co-production being a bigger part of the production equation.
Okay. Because that would mean more money in the pot, perhaps?
I think people are want to share the risk now across multiple countries.
Yeah.
So it might be some money from Canada with a tax credit, for example, from Ireland to do post-production, or from from England, for example, to do post, or to even have some of it being a partial Canadian-UK co-production.
Right.
I don't know if that answer made any sense.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me. More collaboration across the globe is always welcome.
I think when I started working on Narcos would be a really good example. I remember reading the script and thinking, this is a fantastic script, but most of it's in Spanish, and Americans don't want to watch a show that they have to read subtitles.
Yeah.
And that was my original opinion when I read the script for the first time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have been more wrong. And
so
that
good.
The world changed, I think, for me, was like seeing that show become a hit, and then seeing the acquisition of other shows like Squid Game, which was in Korean, and just now the world being way more accepting of subtitles. And I think that's changing everything's changing now.
Yeah.
People are willing to money heist. Like, people are willing to watch a show that's subtitled.
Yeah.
And before, that was completely not even allowed from an American television point of view. Clearly, I'm American, so I'm giving you a very American perspective. So.
No, it's so true. I think audiences just want more creativity. They want to see something new and fresh, and that helps with that. I really love, as we're in France, The Agency. Have you seen that?
I have not.
So good. Definitely. It's so funny. Definitely one to watch. So we're obviously
Is
talking...
that Call My Agent?
Call My Agent. That's it.
Yes.
It's been a few years since I watched it.
Yes. Love Call My Agent.
So funny.
Please don't make an American version of that show. Please. Do not make an American version of that show.
I actually think there might be one already.
I'm sure. Okay.
Anyway, we digress. We're talking to the VFX community. I'm sure hopefully lots of other people will watch this too. Do you have a message for the VFX industry from your perspective, working with us as a collaboration, in your experience?
I feel the most successful collaboration is when VFX is brought in very early in the process,
Yes.
very early in prep, and that they are part of the prep process. I think a lot of times you see VFX saving a production,
Yes.
or making, and it feels like sort of an add-on versus integrated into the film. And that's true for television and for film and commercials as well. And as VFX is integrated as a forethought versus an afterthought, the success, first of all, it's more successful creatively, it's more successful financially. And I often feel that VFX not only integrated correctly into a production, make the movie, they're in some ways post-directing the movie as well. So I'm all about fix it and prep.
Yeah, I love that.
Have everybody have VFX part of that process. So we're talking about it, we're storyboarding it, we are prevising it, and so when we're shooting it, we're all on the same page. That this is the vision, and this is how we're going to execute it. Yes,
I love that you said that, because that is really what our industry wants all the time, and it is happening more, especially with things like virtual production. But if there's any directors out there that aren't thinking that way, please change your mind, because it's just so important, like you say.
I think it's unfair to throw a bunch of film at a VFX team and go fix this.
Fix it, yeah.
And I mean, because now you're leaving the VFX team, and now if they have talent and they have and they're excited about it, sure, they can save a movie. And I've seen it happen recently. I just saw something that I thought was the direction was, I was going to say very wasn't particularly inspired, and a VFX team came in and did a beautiful job with adding set extension. It was a post-apocalyptic movie, so they had to add all these decayed elements, broken down factories, and that actually made the movie. So in some ways, I thought the movie was saved by post-direction.
Okay.
And I thought the VFX team in particular did such a beautiful job on a really limited budget.
Yeah.
And really brought the viewer into, this dystopian world.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for VFX, they saved that movie, I think.
Well, I'll ask you afterwards. I think I know which movie you're talking about, but I'll ask you.
I'm not saying any names.
No, I won't
protect
get
the
it, I won't
innocent.
get it online. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. One question I'm going to ask, it's kind of boring as well, sorry, but important for our industry right now. Are you part of a trade association as a director, filmmaker, producer?
The only trade association I'm part of is the Directors Guild of America and the Directors Guild of Canada.
Yeah.
And you asked a question earlier about staying on top of new technology, and both guilds do have digital technology forums where directors are invited to, whether it's the Directors Guild office in Directors Guild facility in New York City or in Los Angeles, to talk about developments and what's changing in the industry. Mm-hmm. So there is that. We do that internally.
Yeah.
I would say that they're not frequent enough.
Yeah.
Because things are changing. It feels like every 6 months.
Yeah.
6 weeks.
More than
6 days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you're happy that you're part of one. Does it help you professionally and as an industry?
I mean, obviously, I'm happy to be part of the Directors Guild.
Yeah.
I think they do a lot for directors. I think they're doing a lot for educating. I think they do a lot of workshops. They do a lot of fantastic screenings. I mean, where else do you get to go and see Steven Spielberg talk about his movie?
Oh, nice.
Or, any Tarantino speaking about his movies.
Yeah.
You can see, they're screening them, and they're also allowing directors to ask questions after the movie is done.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. I only ask because VFX, we don't have a global trade association. We're kind of the only industry that doesn't have that. So I was just intrigued what your thoughts are on that, because I feel like we do need one.
I think it's probably, since VFX and technology is leading the future of film production, it makes perfect sense that you guys have a guild. And I love the fact that you're thinking of it globally, because VFX now are done everywhere, whether it's in Nepal or in India or in England, Canada, United States.
Yeah.
I think that having a global guild or trade association is probably great.
Yeah.
Because you guys are the most important thing. And I feel like, it's 100% true. I mean, so much of what we do now is dependent, whether it's something as simple as color grade or all the way to, I've worked on a lot of shows where you don't see the visual effects at all because it's cleaning up an error, it's cleaning up hair on a face, it's cleaning up complexion. It's the VFX that you don't see that are prevalent in all sorts of network television shows that you don't even know it's a VFX show. You see Star Trek and that's a VFX shot, that's a VFX shot.
Yeah.
And then, but you see something like, The Good Doctor, and you realize, they've done VFX work on a skin tone that they're not happy with, or there's a microphone in the shot, or an apple box, which end up in shots all the time. So it's the seamless work that's been done.
Yeah.
That's being done.
I love that. I couldn't have put it any better myself. So our new VFX spokesperson. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate
Great
your time.
to be here. Thank you for asking me some questions. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, everyone.